Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Jai Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is ki Jai. Granth Raj Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai. Shri Chaitanya Charitamrita ki Jai. Shri Gurudev ki Jai. Word to word synonyms, translations and purpose of Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Shri Nitai Gaur Chandra Prem. Hari Hari Bol. Jai Hare Krishna. So welcome everyone who would like to start the conversation, and others can join in the realizations afterwards. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees. We are in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 13, verse 4. Nature, the enjoyer, and consciousness. Thank you, His Grace Ambrish Prabhuji. Thank you, Her Grace Purnapanda Devi Dashi Mataji, and His Grace Krishna Samarpan Krishna Das Prabhu for giving us an opportunity to give our realization. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 13, verse 4. Tat kshetram yascha yadrakcha yadvikari yatascha yat sacha yo yat prabhavascha tat samasena me shrunu. Tat kshetram yascha yadrakcha yadvikari yatascha yat sacha yo yat prabhavascha tat samasena me shrunu. Tat kshetram yascha yadrakcha yadvikari yatascha yat sacha yo yat prabhavascha tat samasena me shrunu. Tat, that, kshetram, field of activities, yat, as, cha, also, yadrak, as it is, cha, also, yat, what is, vikari, changes, yataha, from which, cha, also, yat, one, saha, he, cha, also, yaha, one, yat, which, prabhavaha, cha, influence, also, tat, that, samasena, in detail, me, from, me, shrunu, understand. Translation by Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Now please hear my brief description on this field of activity and how it is constituted. What it is changes are, whence it is produced, who that knower of the field of activities is, and what his influences are. Purport. The Lord is describing the field of activities and the knower of the field of activities in their constitutional position. One has to know how this body is constituted, the materials of which this body is made, under whose control this body is working, how the changes are taking place, where from the changes are coming, what the causes are, what the reasons are, what the ultimate goal of individual is, and what is the actual form of the individual soul is. One should also know the distinction between the individual living soul and the super soul, the different influences, their potentials, etc. One just has to understand this Bhagavad Gita directly from the description given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and all this will be clarified. But one should be careful not to consider the Supreme Personality of Godhead in every body, and individual soul to be the jiva. This is something like equalizing the potent and the important. So My realization from this particular verse is that here Srila Prabhupada is trying to make us understand that we must learn from the right source, understand the difference between the body, soul, and super soul, that is Krishna. We should not speculate. We must hear from the sources, or Srila Prabhupada says that we must hear from the Krishna himself, not any other sources, or from our spiritual master and the authorized scriptures. So the real knowledge is not actually bookish knowledge. Krishna is explaining to everyone, and he explains here as well. He's going to explain the further, and that we should gain that knowledge through our gurus, sadhu, and shastra, not from any other sources or any imaginary or any other theory. And Srila Prabhupada says that the soul is different from the body. When we understand that the soul is different from this body, then we stop living just for the sense gratification. But for that, we must understand. And when we focus more on our devotional service to Krishna, then slowly one can understand. So our main goal is to know Krishna. All this knowledge, the Kshetra and Kshetrajna, is meant to help everyone to remember and serve Krishna always. Don't In one of the Maharaj's lecture and Melo, some points I noted that, and Maharaj says that don't become proud of knowledge. Maharaj always said that if knowledge doesn't make you humble, it is ignorance. So we must learn the spiritually, not like academically. Also, Maharaj says that apply this knowledge in our daily life. We must, when we know that this body is temporary, why get this, most of the time we get angry or greedy. So Maharaj saying that realization actually comes only by the practice through chanting, reading daily, and living simple way. So Bhagavad Gita is not just theory. Maharaj would say that Gita is a practical guidebook, and if you don't apply it, it becomes just decoration of the bookshelf. So we must understand the soul and the super soul. The difference between the soul, Jiva, and the super soul, Krishna, actually is the key for us to understand and to go nearer to the Lord Krishna. So once we understand Krishna, He's in our heart, we will stop cheating, lying, and become peaceful. But for that, one has to be always associate with the like-minded or pure devotees. Then only it is possible. Because we see that most of the time, though knowing that we know that the Krishna is in our heart, but still we are not 100% perfect. We still try to cheat in different way. That one must really understand and surrender to Krishna and not to cheat or lie. That is actually Maharaj says that, and that's a really big realization for me as well. Maharaj also said that, even Amrish Prabhu also mentioned that one must read at least one verse with purport and think that you are connected with Krishna, and in that way one can try to understand the Krishna closely. Also, one of the Melos, Maharaj again says that don't waste time by decorating the field, our body. Try to understand or try to know that the knower of the field, that's Krishna, and who is with us always. That also Maharaj mentioned in Bhagavad Gita chapter 2 verse 13, that Maharaj says that we decorate our body. That body is actually changing constantly, but we forgetting that the soul is actually inside, which is eternal. And why not care for the real person inside? That that is the big lesson for me as well. And so one should really look inside. We always see that outside, like in a body and then material things and a lot of like in my house or my belongings. So that one should really, I should really think into that line and always think that yes, Krishna is inside, like on camera, and he's watching me and watching my behavior, watching my attitude, everything. And if that comes to understand me, then I think slowly I will be in the path of realization. Also, Maharaj in the Bhagavad Gita chapter 2, verse 22 said that don't cry for the body, focus on the soul, which is changing dresses, prepare the soul to meet Krishna. So yeah, Maharaj always said that you always prepare. So just Maharaj also Srila Prabhupada said that just collecting the degrees is not education. So real learning starts when you ask why I am suffering, why I am here, and what is my relationship with Krishna. If one understands that, and then um, one can ask this type of question continuously and think that Krishna is within me, he's watching me, and then slowly one can progress in spiritual path. So like we make big plan for our body, we forget like this body is changing and every day it's actually changing. Instead of making plan for the body, we try to make the plan for the soul which is eternal. And that's that will reminded us to live very simple way. For that one must chant sincerely and always keep Krishna at the center, because that's the only way to come out of this cycle of the bodily and our identification. So the key point from this particular verse I realize is that this body, this field is temporary. The knower, the soul, which is eternal and is part of Krishna. Super soul, he's always Krishna, Paramatma, is always guiding and loving us silently. So we must see that, focus on that, and to serve Krishna with pure heart and chant, read daily, and live simply and serve lovingly. This is my realization. Hare Krishna. Thank you, dear devotees.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Thank you, His Grace Ambarish Prabhu, Her Grace Punya Pagna Devi Dasi Mataji, and His Grace Krishna Samarpan Krishna Prabhu. Thank you, Ambarish Prabhu, for planting the seed of Hare Krishna WECAN and setting the mood for entire congregation. And it's really working. Sorry, I missed out last week's discussion because of certain reasons. So I try to share briefly. I have not been able to prepare, but I'll share my realization quickly. And hopefully it makes sense. Takshetram yacha yadrikcha yadvikari yatascha yat sacha yo yat prabhavascha tattamasena me shrunu. Translation. Now please hear my brief description of this body, of this field of activity and how it is constituted. what its changes are, whence it is produced, who that knower of the field of activity is, and what his influences are. So this is how Krishna talks, black and white, and field of activities. And I wonder why the modern world, or I don't know, I've not come across. Actually, they should do PhD on these topics with the science which Krishna gives, such a logical presentation of this philosophy, where field of activities, owner of the field of activities, who knows this field of activities. And it is just such an interesting and at a topic on which we can discuss whole life, but it's just so interesting. Now the next is coming the influences of this field of activities. What's the outcome or the subtle part of it, which probably coming soon, that how things actually happen. And the previous verse which I missed last week, Kshetra Jnana Chapi Mam Vidhi Sarva Kshetresu Bharata Kshetra Kshetrajnor Jnanam Yattaj Jnanam Matam Mama. O son of Bharat, you should understand that I am also the knower in all bodies. And to understand this body and its knower is called knowledge, that is my opinion. This is very interesting that Krishna is giving opinions. But that's not what I wanted to share. That I wanted to highlight that to understand this body and its knower is called knowledge. So knowledge is not knowing things. Knowledge is understanding things. Even when we are studying in college and having our degrees in schools, it is not how much we have studied, what qualification we have got, how much we have understood and how much we can apply. Same here, same concept here applied. That's my realization, that to understand this body and this knower is called knowledge. If we don't understand, then we are fool number one. So that's the point I wanted to highlight from this verse. And as Sopan Prabhu also said that they are being able to apply this knowledge, otherwise it's so peace. Yeah. And the verse we are studying this week, in which Prabhupada writes the last line, but one should be careful not to consider the Supreme Personality of Godhead in everybody to be one with the individual soul, the Jiva. This is something like equating the potent and the impotent. So what I understand from this, when these great personalities were present physically on this material world and they were preaching, like when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was here, or even before that, when all those Gyanis and Mayavadis were in full force. And all the knowledge, we will discuss everything except Krishna. And now Prabhupada is talking about this equating the soul and super soul. I feel that in present circumstances, even if even this, nobody want to think like that. Even people don't think like that. They don't want to believe soul. They don't want to believe super soul, and they are atheist. And now, as the Kali Yuga is progressing, how we preach this knowledge to the masses is also becoming very important. That's our devotional activity. That okay, we know the knowledge, but this knowledge, probably time, place, or circumstances that was preached. But we have understand the concept, as Sopan Prabhu highlighted many of Maharaj's quotes, which are so perfect. Means all this knowledge is so perfect, but the audience is changing. Now the world leaders are fighting like dogs, which Prabhupada is saying that you talk of any leader, they're fighting like dogs. This is my land, this is your land, I will do this, I will kill you, I'll do this. And this is what is happening in the entire society. The people are going in isolation. Nobody wants to talk for whatever reason, whether they are family, whether they are friends, whether they are devotees. Now with this AI and all those information coming, nobody wants to share anything. And in that situation, we are preaching. We are going and talking to new people. So I find it overwhelming. I find it very challenging. And I find that, oh man, how do I do this? Means how do I talk to these people when nobody wants to talk to you? That's my situation. That's why I've taken a step back. And I'm thinking that how to preach this knowledge, because we have taken preaching as our devotional activities. That this is how we engage our body, our mind, our material things, our everything into propagating this knowledge of Krishna consciousness, whatever we know. Okay, we read the books, we attend the classes, we do the discussion, we do very high-fi discussion. But unless that discussion can be simplified and explained, that's the challenge I'm having at the moment, where nobody wants to talk and nobody trusts anyone, and everybody is in their own what do you call it, universe. So yes, this Krishna's knowledge of this analytical knowledge which Krishna is giving, so more coming today, and it all culminates to devotional activities. There are more coming into this. All culminate to this. But devotees understand, analyze, they relish all those knowledge. They see that they appreciate the Krishna's creation. So that's what I wanted to share, Prabhu. Sorry, I've not been very to the point. I've just spoken my heart out. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Thank you very much for your very nice realizations as usual. So we are on Bhagavad Gita, chapter 13, verse 4. Tat kshetram yacha yadviksha yadvikari yataschaya sachayo yad prabhavascha tat samashela me shunu. Synonyms translation, Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Just read the translation. Now please hear my brief description of this field of activity and how it is constituted, what its changes are, whence it is produced, who that knower of the field of activities is, and what his influences are. So this is very interesting verse in terms of the Lord explaining the field of activities, the knower of the field of activities, and the constitutional positions. So essentially, this is explaining where we stand and why we are where we are at the moment. So Srila Prabhupada explains about this, that there is always a field of activity, and then there are two parties. So one party is the occupier, and the other is the one who is the owner. For example, you have a place which you're renting. So there is a landlord, that is the owner, and the person who is renting is the person who is the occupier. So that is a differentiation between the super soul and the individual soul. And why we are in this material world is because we have forgotten our constitutional position, because we wanted to lord it over. And so Krishna, as a kind Supreme Personality of Godhead, as a father, as a loving father, has allowed us to be in this position, to be able to exercise our free will. And we know what is the result of that. We all are experiencing that. And now we are striving after we don't know how many lifetimes, to go back to that position where we can not be independent of Krishna. So I remember from last time's verse, Prabhuji explained about the independence and the dependence. So when we are in our original position, when we are in this material world, we learn how to be independent. And then when our consciousness is connected with spiritual activities, and the more and more we become Krishna conscious, that is when we learn to be dependent on Krishna. And that is our original position. So because of that mistake, that one moment when we decided that we wanted to be independent of Krishna, now we are taking only God knows how many lifetimes and moments to come back to that position. So I was just thinking that now, at least now, our faith in Krishna consciousness and our determination should be such that no matter what, we should not let ourselves come back to that position ever again. That is the biggest service we can do to our own self. Here also in this verse, this one word which is very important is the prabhavas. So the prabhav in that Srila Prabhupada talks about how it is influence. So how we have 8.4 million species, and then the human species is 400,000, but obviously not all of them belong to this planet. They are spread across the universe. And then the comparison that as a human being, we may think that we can do a lot of things and we may be the superior species, but still we cannot, if we wish to, we cannot just fly if we wanted to, as an example. And whereas a bird can fly. So every species has been given important, so to speak, ability that they can have. Then that is given by the prabhav, that is by the Lord. That is the Lord's mercy. Krishna's the owner, and Krishna has, given us that ability. And of course, we are part and parcel of Krishna. So Srila Prabhupada also explains about how everything, even in the material world, everything, I think this point also was mentioned by my Prabhuji last time, that everything, material, spiritual, everything is actually essentially owned by Krishna only. There is nothing that is separate from Krishna. So that is defuncting the Mayavadi theory where when you leave this body, then you become one. No, we don't. We always, eternally, always remain as, part and parcel, but separate from Krishna. And so in that, we serve Lord Krishna. So for me, this in this verse, I think it was a reminder of where do I stand and why I'm standing where I am, and how I want to convince myself in this process that I don't want to ever be again in this position where I have misused my free will and my independence to be, because that misuse of the free will and independence has brought me into this material world, away from Krishna. And so this verse reminds me of the gravest mistake that I have committed. And I want to remind myself of this every time So I don't get complacent, and I don't get again ever into that consciousness or position. And I'm striving to get rid of that consciousness. So somewhere I can achieve being in my original position of the eternal servitor of Lord Krishna, that he is the supreme personality of Godhead, and that I'm a tiny, insignificant soul, and my purpose and my existence is only and only to serve him. So yeah, Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Thank you, His Grace Sundaresh Babuji, Vargas Panpega Mataji, and His Grace Krishna Samarpan Krishna Prabhu for training us and giving us opportunity to study this Bhagavad Gita verses and share our realizations. And thank you, Sopan Prabhuji and Avinash Prabhuji and Panpaja Mataji for your very nice realizations. Tat Kshetram Yach Yadricha Yadvikari Yatashyata Sachayo Yat Prabhavasya Tat Samasena Meshinu. Translation. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada Ji ki jai. Now please hear my brief description of this field of activity and how it is constituted. What its changes are. And hence, when it is produced, who that knower of the field of activities is and what his influences are. So, as Arjun asked the question, he wanted to know about the field of the activity, the Kshetra. So, this is a continuation. Now, Krishna is actually explaining these technical matters. Now, this is a continuation from the last verse, where now Krishna is going into the details of actually how this actually the field activity is actually made, how it is constituted. The changes that is the various changes it goes through. So the body is going through various changes. It's also talking about when it is produced, how it is produced, what are the causes and also the reasons for its creation. It's also talking about the soul, its original constitutional position or original form. And it's also talking about the super soul. So actually, I was meditating on these points actually. So this is definitely very, very technical. And also is giving very systematic and the detailed information about this material body and also the soul and the super soul. and their position and their relative positions, you know. So Srila Prabhupada actually said also the last very important point, as you know, other devotees also mentioned, that the comparison between the soul and super soul, no? So when I was thinking, you know, how this actually knowledge, you know, definitely actually, you know, actually interested to know further, you know. So what Bhagavad Gita is now talk about on these points. So we have basic information, and as the material science, you know, so it only talk about the actually material body and its composition to the limited extent. And there's a lot of speculations and assumptions, and they're always finding out things, you know, how that is actually functions and all that. And it even doesn't cover the subtle part, you know, the subtle body, the mind, intelligence, and ego. But these discussions, you know, they're actually clearly given here. And Krishna is going to actually explain that in detail in coming verses. So personally for me, actually, it is helping me to understand, you know, actually why we are actually born, or why we assume this material form, and why this actually body is made in such a way, why it's actually deteriorating every day. And also is talking about soul, which is actually eternal. And also our actually in this actually our heart, there is soul and there is super soul. You know? So there's a common misunderstanding about it actually among the general people. You know, they always think that soul and super soul, they're one and the same. So Srila Prabhupada is clarifying that point clearly here, that there is a gulf of difference, you know. So it's like comparing the potent versus impotent, you know. So we are just like a drop in an ocean versus Krishna is the whole ocean. So there is no comparison. We are only the actually very minute part of actually Krishna. So how this actually knowledge is going to help, you know, from preaching point of view, I was thinking. So definitely, I think it is going to be very, very helpful, because people do ask technical questions, especially the people who are very educated, who are actually scientifically, you know, inclined. And normally they are actually non-believers, you know, in the concept of the soul or rebirth. So definitely the knowledge that is given here, it does actually fill the gaps what the material science do not know. And it's very technical, and it's given in a very systematic manner. So definitely I think it's going to help with our pitching efforts. So these are the actually points, you know, actually understood. So definitely, actually, as we further discuss, you know, about the actually this material body and the soul, you know, so it's very, very actually it does have like a huge impact, you know, because as Mataji also said, you know, the reason we born in this material body, you know, because we actually kind of revolted against Krishna, and we actually want to enjoy like Krishna, or we consider ourselves to be enjoy, you know, even in this present body. So even if we have this information, it's very difficult to change this attitude of enjoying things. So I was thinking, you know, why we are so attached. You know, even actually all this knowledge is given to us now through the Bhagavad Gita, or you know, actually we hear from Srila Gurudev, Srila Prabhupada, and Rishi Prabhu. Still, even we know the information, actually, it is too hard to sometimes give up this material attachment, or actually we are very much actually get back to our actually original like a material actually position, you know. Even we have this information, as soon as we are in the material activities, we kind of forget we are the soul, you know, not this body, and we act very much on the actually body platform. The way we actually do things, or the reason we do things, or the way we react to different situations is very much on the bodily platform. So yes, actually this knowledge, as we learn, you know, why it is said, how is this actually material or filled up activity, you know, how it is made, you know, is actually composition, why it is created, which is actually really interesting, and the reason causes behind its creation. So yes, these are the actually point. Actually, it's more of a more questions rather than a realizations for me. Yes, Prabhuji. That's what I actually realized while just thinking over these points. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Okay, Hare Krishna, dear devotees, thank you very much for nice realizations. Now, anyone has any questions or any things to be clarified from the speakers? Or the speakers have any questions from anyone else? Please feel free. Hare Krishna. Okay, so there are no questions or clarification, which is nice. I think most of the points are very nicely, different points have been covered. We should finish today. Yeah, Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is ki jai. Granth Raj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Shri Chaitanya Charitamrita ki jai. Srila Gurudev ki jai.
Jai.
Word to word synonyms, translations and purport for Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Shri Nitai Gaur Chandra Premanande, Hari Hari Bol.
Hari Hari Bol.